Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to finish up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what to listen to. Today's request comes at us from Alex, says, Forlesen, Nightbridge. This is a long one, so sorry in advance, but it's a journey. Can't say much about it other than that there's an abridged version, but it doesn't hold up as well as the full one. It starts slow and really builds. All right, so let's get into this. We're going to listen to Forlesen's Nightbridge. We're looking at a little over 18 minutes, so feel free to pause, get yourself a snack, some water, and, settle in. Get ready for a journey. Let's go. A very slow build here at the start. Really being patient with this. Very low tone. It almost sounds like he's getting into some throat singing. Just really sitting in this atmosphere here. You have some interesting electronic stuff going on, creating a very tense atmosphere. We got some like soundscape ideas going on. Rising tempo, rising volume, simultaneous accelerando and decrescendo. Although the vocals don't seem to have accelerated So we were just changing how short the notes were in the drums. Yeah, that's trippy. The drums alone almost have a tempo change, nothing else. The restraint is killing me. I'm on the edge of my seat. Where are we going with this? Yeah, very interesting. So very sludgy, moving in a fairly cyclical chord progression, but really diving into a lot of beauty in that songwriting. And the whole song has had beautiful elements to it as well. This one just utilizes harmony in a way that we hadn't seen in the previous 7 minutes. Well, I take that back, because the female vocals, especially when they started harmonizing, we started seeing strong ideas of melody and harmony. I'm a bit curious about how those like heavy knocking drums fit into this larger picture though. Those bass kicks are interesting. They're very muted. They're actually very difficult to hear. muffled I think is another good word for them. Interesting things here, jumping back and forth between 3/4 and 4/4, and I'm not catching a pattern on it. I'm sure it's there. There is some 3/4/4/4, but I think there's also an odd bar length. What's going on here? We have some super compressed black metal. I can faintly make out an alternating bass and snare. Constant guitaring. We got the blackened growls. Interesting. Yeah, the compression on this. It feels like there's a mattress between the headphones and my ears. It's almost kind of unnerving, actually, the mix, the way that they have this sounding. Maybe surreal is a better term. Like it's clearing up, or maybe I'm just getting used to it. But when it first came in, it sounded like a concert was going on inside of a building, and I was outside the building. Yeah, so there's I'm loving that they're using the guitar to tell the story here. Yes. Oh man. Dude, those shifting relationships in the dyads is music to my ears. Very sharp transition there, but we've returned back to the opening. A little bit of tension there. Wow. That's an interesting track. It it incorporates a lot of stuff I'm not usually too keen on, and tries to combine them all into a cohesive package, utilizing ideas that I typically do gravitate towards. And I'm not quite, I don't know where I sit on this one. So we have heavy atmospheric stuff that we start with. I think it's just electronic drones and very, very quiet vocals. A quiet section, actually, overall. this song played around a lot with volume dynamics. And we did that for quite some time before moving into the sludge section. I think that was at like minute 6 or minute 7 when the guitar and the drums came in, and that was also that ending drum and guitar and vocal section. It was mirroring this second idea we went into. We took that, we brought it back down into very atmospheric work. I think it was actually, we moved into no instruments at one point. The female vocals came in, we did some harmonies with that. We did the heavily compressed black metal, and then went into the metal section there in the middle that lasted for a few minutes. And we went from that into the outro, which utilized the ideas of that second section before using some of the atmospheric drones of the intro to do the outro. In a sense, this is sort of a bell curve style of writing. A lot of the stuff we see at the beginning shows up at the end, but in reverse order. And we got sludge in here, we got atmospheric drone, we got black metal. 3 genres I'm not usually too keen on, but they inject some beautiful melody stuff in there. We have those female clean vocals, the harmonies they were doing that were bringing us into the black metal section. We had the guitar solo / duet in the black metal section that led us into the harsh vocals growling or screaming over some really nice guitar work. And we finish it off with some male and female duet vocal stuff. There are at least half a dozen sections in here that I would rank very highly as far as harmony goes and melody and just really beautiful writing. And it puts me in an odd place because there's about 4, 5, 6 minutes in here that I loved. And then about 12 minutes that was okay. Sometimes at best. But I also understand why we needed those 12 minutes and what they brought to the table. I do think it was a bit egregious at times, a bit overdone. But as I've always said, any changes to the song would make it a different song. Not one that's better, not one that's worse, a different song. If this, well, actually, Alex did say there is an abridged version of this. The song's called Nightbridge. There's an abridged version, abridged of Nightbridge. Okay. I am curious if I would enjoy that more. And possibly the flip side of that is if I did enjoy it casually more, which there's a high possibility if they cut out a lot of the drone and sludge aspects, would I appreciate it more? And I think that is an interesting question. I tend to appreciate a lot of music, and I understand that even though I might not enjoy them, sometimes on any level whatsoever, I appreciate what they did. And this song is a journey. It is less of a journey if it's shortened. Is the effect lesser if it's shortened? Is the experience lessened if it's shorter? So it's an interesting question that I don't get to ponder too often. Well, I ponder it sometimes. I don't get to explore too often. I am tempted to do an additional video, or at the very least listen to the abridged version and do a YouTube community post about it with my thoughts, because I have spoken in the past of songs like this that are divisive for me, where I appreciate what they were doing, their artistic and value and the intentions, but I did not enjoy the music itself. And I've always said, I would do this or I would do that. Things that, as a composer and somebody who enjoys, I have my own musical biases in the music I like to listen to, how I could have transformed a song that would have been more palatable for me. But here's an interesting thing. Usually those are hypotheticals, but there is a version out there that might be more attuned for my ears. And that's not something that happens too often. Usually I have criticisms and I don't have a chance to hear a song that's closer to that. So I think I don't know if I'm going to make a reaction video to it or if I'm going to listen to it on my own and do a text post. But I do think I'm going to listen to it and give my thoughts in one manner or another, because it is a rare situation. Moving on though, let's actually dig into some of this. I broke down the song structure. It's not actually that complex, which makes sense given how long each section is. It is a slow burn of a song. So yeah, let's dig into some of this. I don't know how much I'm actually going to have to talk about, because despite it being an 18-minute song, there's really not a lot going on in half of it, maybe a little more than half. The opening two sections and the outro section, basically everything that's not the black metal section, is very sparse ambient drone. And of course, these areas are designed to create an atmosphere to put the listener in, especially with the opening, designed to put the listener in a specific mood to get them ready for the rest of the song. There are some interesting ideas. I thought the song was really going to ramp up there about 2 or 3 minutes in with those very cool drum hits. In my mind, I kind of pictured the big tree trunks or any other sort of large. Well, I guess later on, once we found metals, we would get these big metal poles or whatever. I can't think what they're called. You would take like 15 people and like smash it into a door and eventually put it on ropes so we didn't have to use as much man. But I can't think. We used them to like smash against castle doors to lay siege and stuff. Why can't I think of what it's called? It's kind of annoying. Anyways, that's what it reminds me of. Of giant, solid pieces of stuff slamming into another giant solid piece of stuff, and just being on the inside of this building about to be attacked and hearing these hits get increasingly faster. There's so much tension and increasing danger. It's a very ominous sort of door knocking idea that I got out of that section. And I mentioned that it was interesting that the atmosphere and the vocal work were not speeding up, but those slams, those drum hits, were. Battering ram. But they were increasing the tempo very subtly and over a very extended period of time. And I really felt like the section had this crescendo and accelerando thing going on. It was getting louder and faster, but it really wasn't. It was just that one part. And then out of nowhere, we have a final drum hit. It echoes a bit. There's some extra reverb on it. And all that energy dissipated. And either we went back to the ambient stuff, or this was when we shifted to the silence right before the female vocal harmonies. Either way, I just, it was a very strange way to transition out of that. We just spent 6, 7, 8 minutes or something like that, increasing tension, increasing energy, building up all of this, and then just tossing out the window, say, yeah, we're going to go back to doing nothing. We're going to go back to the sparseness. What? So that's a very interesting choice. I'm really hoping it has something to do with the vocals. I get this idea. Uh, the pictures in my head, the videos in my head while listening to this are all very fantasy based. It probably comes from that opening uh, part, both of those opening, the first 7 minutes or so. But also, there's a very high fantasy ness to the artwork here, with the owl and the crown. Let me pull this up real quick just so you can get another glimpse at it. We have an owl, we have the crown, we have butterflies. We have these nice stone pillars with these beautiful leaves. It's not like moss or vines. Well, yeah, I guess they are vines growing on them, but they're very pretty vines. Not the kind you would get rid of because they're an overgrowth. The kind that you let grow as an aesthetic aspect. And then, of course, we have around the ring behind the owl, we have, animal heads and something that looks very godlike in the top right corner, something, Zeus-like, long flowing hair, big beard. So to me, this is very high fantasy. We have a castle off in a distant under a starry moon night. So that probably didn't help. But then we have what I think is like empty castle or cathedral vibes going on at the beginning. And then, of course, the battering ram sounds. And I would even say that when the female vocals came in alone, I had no chord to process it against. So it's based entirely on her melodic line. It seems to have some Renaissance ideas built into it. So, once again, putting me inside that era. Um, knights, kings, feudalism, that whole era of European history. So I'm kind of hoping that there's a story here that goes along with this. Maybe they're waiting in a castle, it's under siege, and it's nighttime, and the bridge is the drawbridge, and they found a way to get it down, and now they're waiting in the castle for the attackers to come in, and that's why it's quiet. I don't know. On a musical level, though, it's very weird to give all this energy and then just let it go. You usually don't build up for nothing. It seems like a false payoff. The female vocal sings for a little bit, which I thought was gorgeous. Some really fantastic stuff in there, especially once they started doing double tracking and harmonizing with herself. And then we get a very interesting muffled black metal. And it sounds very much like I'm outside of a concert venue. They're inside it, and it's not like an open field or something like that. It's a building, and I'm on the outside. I can hear if it sounds very muffled, and we go from that into something that's a little less muffled, but still, like I said, it feels like there's a sheet between my headphones and my ear. So it's a very low, very odd lo-fi mix there in the black metal. But as we checked out, black metal is kind of known for lo-fi. It just kind of goes along with it. And we do this black metal bit for quite a while. We have the constant attacks, aggressive drumming, aggressive guitar work. We have the growls. Everything's kind of working together in this idea here. And it sounds very odd to my ears. But the more interesting aspect is I kind of figured I knew where we were going at this point. We had the song prior up to this point, and that was all sort of sparse. I don't sparseness. Atmospheric sparseness. We moved into this black metal. Feels a bit odd, especially from what we came from, but okay, this is how we're going to finish the song out. It's an extended intro. Possibly there's thematic or narrative reasons for it, but this is what we're in for the long haul. We're finally hit the meat of the song. And I got a couple of surprises, which was cool. We did do the repetitious black metal wall of sound thing for a while, but we did enter into a really cool guitar solo that was not just speedy playing. It really began to tell a story. It helped capture some of these extra emotions and feelings of the song that have been alluded to at the beginning with some of their melodic lines, but have really not been dug into. And then we get some really nice duet work where we have constantly varying relationships with dyads. Dyads are just two notes. It's like a triad. Triad's three notes. Somewhere along the way, it becomes a chord. I don't know if a triad is technically a chord, but at least four or more notes played simultaneously is a chord. Maybe it's three. So a dyad is just two notes. We have two guitars. They pick a note. What I mean by relationships is distance. So if the two notes are this far apart, and then they're this far apart, and then this one stays and this one comes down, and then they move back together, and then they get more distance. That's what I'm talking about. A lot of the times, especially power chords, if we're going back to like 90s metal where power chords were king, 80s metals kind of did it too. Power chords are really the root, the fifth, and the octave. So, if we just focus on the root and the fifth, and, you go up and you come down and you go up and you go up again, the distance never changes. The relationship doesn't change, and thus the texture of the dyad stays static. It's why, at least to me, unless you're doing something really interesting, power chords tend to sound a bit flat because you're using the same quality, the same characteristics over and over and over in your chords. So with here, we're taking two notes and we're constantly changing their relationship to each other. Sometimes one guitar goes up, sometimes one guitar goes down. The distance that they're changing their range can alter, and it makes some really, really cool individual textures. But when you take it as a whole, and you look at the entire passage, it just has some really cool characteristics to it in the way that they change, the textures and the qualities, characteristics that they change, note to note, and how the sort of the journey of the passage, it is just some really cool stuff going on there. And like I said, that is the pinnacle. That's the high point after hearing this real nice melodic line from the single guitar. So that was, it was a very welcome surprise. Black metal to me is not really known for strong melodic work, at least not the black metal I've heard. So to hear, I think the drums even cut down a bit. They weren't playing their 16th notes. They were playing eighths. They kind of did like a halftime feel to allow the melodic element to come out and do its thing for a little bit. But yeah, that was just, it was gorgeous. It was unexpected. We saw some really cool note relationships we don't hear too often in metal music. And actually, I kind of want to go back and see if there's any sheet music for this and find out what those exact notes are and kind of see if I can find, a global key or maybe see what the bass is doing and see if I can't put together some sort of idea of a chord progression. I wonder if there aren't some Renaissance ideas in there since we've already done melodic writing that evokes the ideas of Renaissance writing earlier with the female clean vocals. Once again, tying into this idea of that, that era of Europe. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm interested in that now. I knew they sounded cool, but I think I wonder if I wonder if I'm onto something with that. How much of this song, harkens back to classical Renaissance writing. So, anyways, though, after that, we have a really cool melody guitar line that plays under the growls, which, once again, we have a black metal sound with a strong melodic element. Very different, very unique, and I'm digging it. I mentioned yesterday that I like. Actually, it wasn't yesterday. It was today with Death Spell Omega that I really enjoy the texture of this style of writing. I just really want more melodic work to it. It's usually the repetitiveness that tends to, I don't want to say bore me, but turn me away. And this is the opposite. This is a highly dynamic track that does a lot of interesting things with this style of music. And I say highly dynamic, I mean this middle section. The intro and outro are not dynamic by any means. The song as a whole is dynamic, for sure. We go through quite a different set of ideas. But it's really only this middle part that works within this framework of what I'm talking about, this death metal or black metal, the constant attacks, wall of sound, very repetitious idea. But I love this injection of melody in it. And then we have the outro, which is, as I pointed out, the same as the second section of the song. And our final 15, 30 seconds maybe is the ambient drone from the opening of the song. Now, I don't know what any of this means. This is definitely going to be looking at the trees rather than the forest analysis. I don't really have any global ideas about this, other than the fact that I kind of see some sort of, Renaissance style, Kingdom Under Siege, high fantasy concept story going on in my head. But again, I don't know how much of that is biased from some of the sounds in here, how much of it is influenced by the album art. So I could be completely off, and that's none of their intentions. But other than that, the music is very strange to me. Taking it all in as a whole, the structure, the way things flow together, the abruptness of flow at some points. The mix is a bit all over the place. We have a very modern, wide, clean mix there at the opening. Then we have super compressed and muffled for the black metal. And then we have slightly compressed and muffled for the that final metal section. It clears up a little bit when we get the melodic guitar parts in. And then we end up with a very clean modern production at the end. So the production's all over the place. The styles are all over the place. The tone is all over the place. We have this solemn seriousness throughout the beginning and end, and then this wild burst of energy in the middle. It's it's a journey. I enjoyed my time with it. I'm glad I listened to it. And like I said, I will probably check out the abridged version and give my thoughts in one way or another. So I'm not against listening to it again. But I am a bit lost on the overarching ideas. And some of that just might be context. Maybe this is, maybe the album's a concept album about, a medieval castle with a warring king or something. And this is one story in it. I don't know. Maybe maybe there is an overarching narrative element that explains some of the drastic shifts in tone and style. But without any of that context, analyzing it on its own, first time listen, it's interesting, for sure. I don't dislike it, but it's very disjointed, and I don't really see how everything ties together. And the opening 7, 8, 10 minutes, something like that, I feel drags the song out and destroys the pacing of it. However, on the other side, I appreciate the context it brings in and allows the middle 9 minutes or so to be extremely effective. And, paying off the listener for their patience. So I'm kind of torn on this one. This where you guys come in, though. Let me know. Did you enjoy this or not? Is there any context that you have to help me understand it or to help me enjoy it a little more? Are you in my boat and you enjoyed some parts of it, but the work as a whole wasn't really for you? Or did you just love every minute of this and you got to, look up more Forlesen? Let me know. Above the comment section, there's a description box. In there, there's a link for Linktree. If you want to submit your own special selection, you'd like to follow me on Twitter, if you'd like to support me through Patreon, as well as a dozen other things, all those links are in the link tree. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. Alright, that's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow with our final 2 videos for the week. We'll look at our final song for Dissonance Week, and we'll check out a sound from my inbox. I got it today, but I only realized I made that mistake like an hour ago, so we'll see if I can remember that tomorrow when I introduce the video. Alright, until next time, remember, be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.